Benjamin Lindsay here, managing editor at Backstage. I'll let the audience fill in here as we give Brennan a moment to join us. If you are joining us today, I'm sitting with Brennan Clost. He's a decorated dancer on the international stage, and he's making his Netflix debut in an upcoming dance series called Tiny Pretty Things. We're also going to be talking about how he creates his own work on YouTube to kind of get seen and make that transition from dance to acting, and should be a really good conversation. So I'm looking forward to picking his brain a little bit, and thanks for joining us. Give him a minute to join here, and then we can hit the road running. Hey, Brennan, how are you?
Hello, hi Benjamin.
Good to meet you.
Good to meet you too. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us today. Where in the world are you calling in from?
I'm in Toronto.
Okay, that's what I thought. You are based in Toronto, right?
I am. Yeah, I was really lucky with Tiny Pretty Things. Everyone else had to sort of relocate for filming, but the production shot here, so I got to just like stay in my apartment near my family.
Easy
enough. Perfect. Yeah.
How's
Where are you?
I'm in Brooklyn myself.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. How's it been the last 8 or so months with you up in Toronto?
Pretty good. I feel like Canada has handled the pandemic pretty well. We've kind of gone back into a closed down stage right now. So I think beginning of October, they closed gyms and indoor dining and things again, which was too bad. And then they were supposed to open up this week, and they've kind of extended the closures. So I think we're still trying to manage. Toronto's numbers aren't great right now, so I think they're trying to keep everyone safe. But I luckily have my parents outside of the city, and they just converted their whole basement into a gym. So I've been going there and using their elliptical and spending time with them and getting outside, like not in the city core, because I'm like right downtown Toronto.
That's a nice luxury to have, for sure. Yeah. Nice getaway.
Yeah.
Well, glad to hear that you've been taking care of yourself. Obviously, it's pretty extraordinary times we're all living through right now. Yeah. But you do have some fun things on the horizon to look forward to, and that's what we're chatting today.
It's been the best to have Tiny Pretty Things, the show, and it continued to kind of get bumped and bumped, so it was kind of nice actually that we just like continue to have something to look forward to all through the pandemic.
And I know that the exact date hasn't been announced yet, but it is coming soon.
And it'll be announced really soon also.
It'll be announced really soon. All right. During this interview. No. We'll
like 5 minutes.
Yeah, right. But tell us about this character, Shane, how you first came to the project. Just tell us how the origin story for your involvement.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, my audition experience was like no other that I've had before. So everything was by self-tape initially. And I, being in Canada, got the request for Toronto casting to self-tape for Oren, another character. And loved the show, was super excited about it. But I had read the breakdown and really wanted to read for Shane, but was like, that's okay, I'll read for Oren. He's an awesome character too. So prepared the sides. And this tape that I sent in was like close to 15 minutes. The amount of dance that they had us prepare and learn, like an entire ballet class, plus improvising solos and a dance reel if you had one, and then like 10 pages of sides. So they were really looking for people that could do both, that they didn't have to dance double for the series. So I was self-taping for Oren. In the middle of filming my scenes, I got an email from my agent with a request for New York casting to self-tape for Shane. Okay. So I had like my light set up. I had my best friend being my reader. I was like, whatever. Okay, print the sides, film it quick. Like did it within the hour, sent them both off, and then got pinned for a callback. Asked what character I was reading for the callback, and they told me Oren because it was in Toronto. So I prepare for Oren, show up in the room. The producers, the director of the pilot, the showrunner had flown up from LA, and I went and chatted for a while about like Juilliard, whatever. Started into the scene, and they stopped me and they go, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Reading for Oren." And they go, "Why? We loved you for Shane." And we all looked at the casting director, and she was like, "Oh," like it had been a mix-up because I taped from New York versus Toronto, whatever. So they let me work on the Oren scenes with them, and then I had like 5 minutes out in the lobby, got the sides for Shane, familiarized myself. I'd done self-tape like a month prior.
Right.
Went back in, and they were like, just read the sides. Like, don't be afraid, don't be worried about being memorized. And I don't know what came over me. I started into the scenes and was like completely off book. I had done a really good guided meditation before going in, so I'm going to attest it to that. And they were like, I finished the first scene, which had like paragraphs of Shane dialogue off book. And they were like, "Oh, guess you're memorized." And I was like, "Guess so." And then we just like continued. They let me work on the Shane scenes. We chatted for a long time. I left and had been in that callback for an hour and 45 minutes, which like usually you're in and out in like 15, 20 minutes if it's long. So I walked out of there, I called my parents, my agent, I was like, if I don't book this, like no one else could have had an audition like this.
Right. So you left the room, if not knowing that you got the role, knowing that it was a great experience.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I know that I showed up to that audition and was like so present, rolled with the punches. Like I couldn't have asked anything more myself, and I'm sure it showed them that if I'm not right for the role, that I'm a great actor. Maybe they'll use me for something else in the future.
Yeah. Exactly. Now this is, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is really your biggest screen project to date. On Netflix. But it sounds like you're pretty familiar with the audition process and working with sides and working with self-tapes and everything. So how long has this transition from dance to screen acting kind of been percolating as a desire for you?
So I started dancing when I was 7.
Right.
And grew up with that being my main passion, focus. Wasn't really thinking about it as a career option. It kind of just evolved that way. But I, through dance, at a dance competition, got recognized by a talent agent, and he sort of scouted me. And then within the same spring, he decided he didn't want to sign me anymore. I kind of begged and pleaded, like, please give me a chance. And he had this open call audition like the next week and was like, you know what? I know the casting director. Go to that audition. We'll see how you do. And if you do well, you'll be on my roster. And I was 16 at the time. And so I went to the audition, and I ended up booking a lead character on a Disney Channel series. So he signed me, and it all kind of evolved from there. But that Disney show was sort of mockumentary, and so they were really looking for people that had strong dance backgrounds and with like an affinity for acting. And the tone of the show was very loose, very free, like bigger Disney Channel acting. So it kind of lended itself well to like transitioning into acting.
Sure.
Not having very much experience at the time. And then from that, so I started that show when I was 16 and filmed it for 6 years. And it was sort of my summer job every year between going to Juilliard. I would come back to Toronto for the summer, film another season of the show. So I was really, while pursuing dance at Juilliard, was coming home and like dipping my toes in film and TV acting and really getting to see what that world was like. And then I started training more seriously. And it was after Juilliard that I was like, okay, I think I want to pursue acting, or not necessarily just like film and TV over stage. Because Juilliard really prepares you for like live performance dance.
So Tiny is really kind of the glass slipper fit in terms of combining both of those worlds.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like the dream role.
It's great. Now, what is your, obviously Juilliard is where you got the heftier training for dance. What does your training acting wise look like? You mentioned that you did some training after Juilliard. Yeah, so I have been taking improv classes through Second City, which I love, and some of the work that I've been producing on YouTube falls heavily onto that like improv experience. As well, I took some classes at the Barrow Group in New York while I was at school there, just on the weekends, like when I could swing it with Juilliard. And at Louis Bowmater Acting Studio is kind of the bulk of my training here in Toronto. All right, not bad. So hefting up your training in acting and performance in addition to the dance. That's great.
And I've been really lucky too that I learned a lot just being on set, like kind of a crash course with acting. I feel like that's really where I've learned the most. And we were fortunate on Tiny Pretty Things, they brought in an acting coach for us so we could kind of have privates work through our sides whenever. And I really used that. I don't know, if they give you the resource, why not max it out? So.
And does the rest of the cast on Tiny Pretty Things, does their dance resume look like yours? Are they all as experienced in that realm, or does it kind of vary?
No, yeah, they really were looking for what the producers called as like unicorns for the lead cast. These sort of people that had reached such a height in their dance career, but then kind of across the board, all of us within the last 5 years have really sort of shifted from like high level professional dance into acting. So we really were kind of able to carry both on the show, and across the board, everyone, like some people are still pursuing dance more than others, but everyone has kind of achieved that like really high tier dance ballet background.
That's great. It's been such a fun set to be on.
It was great. Like I was chatting with friends that were outside of the show, kind of catching up with them when we were, I think, about 3 months into filming, and just telling them about the experience. And they were like, you sound like you're exactly where you're meant to be. And I was like, you're right. Like I've never felt that quite feeling before, of just being exactly right where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see where it leads next, for sure. What advice would you give dancers out there who want to make that transition? It sounds like you've had some years at it now. So from dance to screen acting, what have you learned along the way that you would advise someone?
I think I still do, and I used to even more so get really in my head about being inexperienced and behind everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
But what I realized was that some people have pursued technical classical training in acting, and some others sort of just have like an affinity or like a sense for it. And really, with acting, there is no blueprint. Like, whatever your journey to it is going to be different than other people's. And so I think just trusting in yourself, trusting in your instincts, because that really is what acting class kind of gets you back to. It gets you out of your head and back to your instincts. So just like messing around and trusting yourself, and kind of like we talked about this at Juilliard a lot, of like just choreograph a bad dance. Like, don't get in your head about making the perfect dance. Just choreograph a bunch of bad ones, because you're not going to learn otherwise. And the more experience, the more you learn, the more you know what works. And then you might also just, it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall. One might stick and be this like incredible experience. And I feel that way with acting as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you don't learn unless you're making mistakes, right? So some
Exactly.
are going to be bad. It's not going to be great out the gate.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And if you don't look back at yourself in 5 years and you're like embarrassed about what you put out, then I don't think you're growing as a person,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
an actor or performer, right?
I love to see too that you have been putting out your own work as a writer, producer, performer with your YouTube web series Australian Airs. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that just came out during the last few months. Like, that was a pandemic project. Oh, your audio's off there. Are you unable to hear me? Freezing up a little bit. Are you there? Huh. It's funny. I can see you, but the audio's not there. Let me see. Audio's off. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. All right. So he's going to join us back in just a moment. Can everyone hear me okay? Was it just Brennan's audio? Give a thumbs up if you can hear me okay. You can't hear me. Oh, can't hear Bren. Let me see. Okay.
I'm so sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I don't know what happened. It kind of just froze, and then I like clicked the screen, and then it muted me. I don't know what happened.
No worries. We figured it out.
Sorry about that.
You take it out, you blow on it, you put it back in.
Just close Instagram, reopen it.
Yeah. I'm still getting used to this format 8 months into this. It's just kind of the way we do things now. It would be nice to interview in person, right? But
no.
Alas, yeah. Anyway, what were we touching on before?
YouTube, Australian Airs.
Oh yeah. So was that kind of a pandemic project? It looks like you were just uploading it within the last few months. So how did that all come about for you?
Yeah. So Britt, who's my producing partner on that, and she acts in it as well with me. We've been friends for like over 10 years, danced together in high school. We were on that Disney Channel show together for 5 seasons. And then we actually live in the same apartment building now. And so at the early stages of the pandemic, when we were able to sort of create a bubble here in Canada where you could bridge some households as long as it was like less than X amount of people, Britt and I decided, we were like, I really miss acting, I miss creating. And her and I had been writing a pilot together for the last like 3 years that now also are developing separate from Australian Airs. But we just sort of have been playing with these personalities and these like accents since watching like Summer Heights High, H2O Just Had Water, some of these like Kath and Kim, like Australian TV shows, and her boyfriend's Australian. My love interest on Tiny Pretty Things Australian. Like, we just love their accents. I've been practicing playing with them, and then sort of had this idea to create this web series, and it really honestly started as a joke. And then the first episode did really well on YouTube. Like,
Yeah.
people seemed to respond really well to it. And we were like, oh, we'd love to continue. So then we structured it a little bit more. The first episode was like very improv based.
Yeah, just kind of talking to the camera.
Yeah. And it sort of just like stemmed from this outrageous premise. And then some of the executives that worked on Tiny Pretty Things ended up watching it and are now getting behind it. And so now we're like properly developing it, putting together scripts, pitch package, and using sort of the YouTube web series that we released. We filmed and released it all through the summer. So July and August, we would like film Monday, Tuesday. One of us would be on like post-production, editing it ourselves. We like taught ourselves editing software, edited it like Wednesday through Friday, would post the trailer Friday, release the episode Saturday, write the next episode Sunday, film Monday, Tuesday. And we did that for like 7 weeks straight while we released it. So now we're using that as sort of like a proof of concept or like a demo pilot to shop around.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way you do it. That's great. Now, what's something that you kind of learned along the way in creating your own product? I feel like creators all the time, or actors all the time, are told, create your own work. And that's easier said than done sometimes. So what's something that took you by surprise in that process?
I think with this one especially, we weren't assuming anything of it. Like, we were really just approaching it out of, we had this idea, we wanted to do it for fun and for ourselves, of just like exploring this concept, acting together. Because it's the pandemic, we were barely getting auditions, we weren't working. We were like, I just miss acting, let's just do this fun thing. And I have done the YouTube web series thing a few times before. This is actually not like my first endeavor with it. So it's really exciting that finally this one is kind of pursuing further than YouTube and is like getting a nice response. Yeah, I mean, time and time again, I constantly am realizing it's so beneficial to have a partner in things. It keeps it fun. And you're like, with Australian, since we created that tight timeline for ourselves, it was so helpful to have, like, we should have done it a little differently with Australian, because the person that was editing then also wrote the next episode. We could have flipped it, but you were then like delegating. So I would have 1 week that was super heavy on, and then 1 week where I was just filming the episode Monday, Tuesday. And it was Brit's week. She took the rest of the episode, post, everything, would just send me the trailer post. So it was really nice to be able to like come together, work on it, and then split off so that we could each separately do our own things. Yeah. And obviously divvying it up that way is just ultimately more productive, I imagine, to get more on it and see how it turns out in the end. But I do love what I've seen of it, so I'm excited to see where that goes for you. Oh, thank you. As a final question, though, just before we wrap up here, what is it that is on your bucket list to do next? I feel like you've had such an accomplished career on stage as a dancer, and now Tiny Pretty Things is coming out. What's next for you? That's a good question. I wrote down in my journal some like potential interview prompts, and one of them is like, what's your dream role? And I wrote on it like Tiny Pretty Things really was. So I'm sort of kind of reevaluating what my next sort of big dream part would be. I'm really enjoying producing my own work right now. I actually later today I optioned the rights to a book that I'd read years ago, and so I think the next like big accomplishment for myself, I want to get that book made into this feature film. It's sort of this teenage spy LGBT story, and I would love to act in it as well. So I think that is probably my next big endeavor. And hopefully using Tiny Pretty Things and my connection with Netflix and the relationships I've gained there to sort of pursue that and catapult. Yeah. I mean, you're in a great place for it. And I mean, just geographically speaking too, once things are back to normal, Toronto is the place to be for production as well. So looking forward to being in touch. It sounds like you have a lot coming up, but this has been great to get to know you a little bit. Thanks for your time. Yeah, thanks, Benjamin. Thank you for chatting with me today. Yeah, and thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye.